So if the way that you're currently harvesting your basil is by coming down here to the bottom of the plant and picking off some of the bigger, healthier looking leaves, then you're going about it all wrong. And doing things that way continuously is going to actually probably kill your plant over time. Instead, what you can be doing is actually doubling your basil harvest every single time that you harvest basil. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to show you the infinite basil hack, where you can take your cuttings and make infinite plants. And then I'm going to show you how to make the most delicious pesto you've ever had out of this basil. So instead of starting at the bottom of the plant, we're going to start at the top of the plant every single time that we harvest basil. And what you're going to see if you look closely at the plant is that there are going to be these little splits where you see that there are little leaves coming out of the stem of the plant. And if you cut right above that, then you'll see that the two little leaves over time will eventually grow into two brand new stems of basil. And so in this way, you can kind of think of basil as like a hydra. You cut off one head and two emerge in its place. And so as long as you keep doing that, your basil will actually double every single time that you harvest it. And over the season, you'll actually see that your bush will get absolutely massive using this method. You'll actually notice that this splitting doesn't just occur at the top. As you go down the plant, you can find other spots where it will split. Now, you can go a little bit farther down the plant. If you need to harvest a lot at one time, you can actually cut a lot of the plant off. You can cut maybe the whole top third of the plant off and it will still grow back. It will still be okay. But if you do go ahead and cut off kind of a larger branch, what you can do is you can actually just stick that straight into a cup of water on your windowsill, and once it puts out roots, you just stick that in the ground and you have magic brand new basil plant. Another thing I want to mention to you is when your basil flowers, so that's what this top part is right here, you can even see that little white flower right there coming in. So when your basil flowers, the flavor of it is actually going to change, and a lot of people say that it changes for the worst. So if you happen to see that your basil is starting to flower, go ahead and pick everything that looks like it's going to flower. Even if you're not 100% sure what you're going to do with it in the moment, it's better to go ahead and pick it off. And like I said, the next time you come back, you will have double the harvest, right? So, even if you have like a couple of these on a small plant, go ahead and pull them off, add them to something if you can, hang them up to dry, whatever you need to do. But definitely make sure that you're getting the flowers off. Here's what the flowers look like just as they're starting to come in. You start seeing these little star shapes at the tips of your basil, and then they get a little bit bigger like that, and maybe then they start stretching out a little bit like that, and then eventually you start seeing, okay, yeah, this is definitely a flower. So also, before I get too far into this, hi, if you're new here, my name is Rachel. This is my garden. Look at how beautiful it is. And I teach beginners how to garden, specifically how to do so without all the chemicals and the synthetics and all that nasty stuff that we don't actually want in our food. And as you can see, you can have a very productive garden without any of that. My garden is actually incredibly weedy right now. And so you can have a garden that is full of weeds that you don't have to spray anything on, that is full of insects, and some of them are pests and some of them are beneficial, and everything is really balancing itself out. But soapbox aside, I'm glad you're here, and I hope that this video actually helps you out a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and pick my basil, and then we are going to go in the kitchen and I'm going to show you how I make my pesto. So I ended up with 2 full baskets of basil, and this is only the second harvest from my plants this year. I have, I think, 8 plants out there, And so if you can imagine this doubling every single time that I harvest, we are going to have a lot of pesto this year. Now for my pesto recipe, I actually have not moved beyond this little sticky note that I keep on my fridge. And I'll put this down below because obviously you can't read this, but this will be in the description of the video. And I do kind of wing it on this. Like I go for about this amount, but I have never once measured the 10 cups of basil that this asks for. I always kind of just like eyeball it and hope for the best. And then everything else I do generally like put in the exact measurements for. So some people will wash their basil, and some of you will be horrified that I will not wash my basil. Like I definitely will inspect it for little critters. Sometimes you'll find a leaf that's all rolled up as like a little jumping spider house. And I definitely do take care to remove stuff like that. But in general, this is all getting blended into a pesto that is then going to be frozen before I ever use it. So I'm not really too concerned about it, especially since, like I said, I don't spray anything toxic on my garden. I don't spray weed killers, I don't spray insecticides. So there's nothing really that harmful to worry about washing off of this basil. So I am going to be doing mine in a food processor today. You can absolutely do it in a mortar and pestle, which I have done before, and I actually have made a video about that. But with the amount of basil, and therefore the amount of pesto that I make these days, I kind of need a little bit of mechanical help with this. So we're going to start with the garlic and the walnuts and the Parmesan cheese. And we are going to crush all that together in here first before we do anything else. All right, and then the next thing is just to add the basil. For me, I kind of add as much as I think will fit in my food processor. And I actually also don't go through and remove everything from the stems. When the stems are really little like this, I find that they just blend up and you don't really notice the texture. So that will go straight in. Sometimes if it's like a bigger stem, like one of these, I will pull off the leaves and I'll try not to put the flowers in, but honestly, I have also put in the flowers before and I find that the flowers themselves don't change the flavor of this all that much. But definitely, like, you know, for the bigger stems, I'll pull those out. This one's kind of in between, you know, it depends how much effort you have to give. You know, if you have the time to sit there and slowly remove every single leaf from your basil, you can absolutely feel free to do that. I have not found that to be super necessary for really delicious basil. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start this blending and then I'm going to add in my oil as that's going. So I'm mostly looking to add about a cup of oil, but in general, I'm looking more for a consistency of the pesto than I am looking at the actual amount of oil I'm adding. I'm just using 1 cup as like kind of a general reference for about how much I should be using. So I'll probably put in just what happened in real time so you can see it. But essentially what I'm doing is I'm pouring the oil until all the leaves get kind of sucked in and ground up. And at that point, it's going to be about the right consistency for me. After that, we're going to add finishing touches. So we're going to add pepper to taste. And then if you care about how green it is, then you're going to want to add just a little bit of some citrus juice, lime juice, lemon juice, whatever you feel like. And that's going to keep it from oxidizing and turning that kind of brownish color. All right, and so the last thing we need to do is actually just set these up for storage. So I have these cute little silicone, I guess, ice cube maker trays. I just got these on Amazon, so I can definitely link them below if you guys want to go get some. But basically, I'm going to fill this up with my pesto. I'm going to put it in the freezer until it's frozen solid. Then I'm gonna pop out the cubes and store them in a gallon Ziploc baggie in the freezer. Usually about half a cube is one serving for me. So if you're feeding a family of 4, maybe you would just take out 2 cubes from the freezer every time you needed to serve dinner. And if you want to see how I make my staple meal with pesto, which is of course pesto pasta, then definitely check out this video that's going to pop up right here. I will lead you through the entire process. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I wish you all happy gardening.